Hey guys, it's Sagar, and today we are going to take a very detailed look at the cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now, unless you have been living under a rock for the past month or so, you must know that OnePlus is collaborating with Hasselblad in hopes of improving the cameras on their phones. If you don't know who Hasselblad is, then it is the company whose cameras NASA used to capture the images of the first step on the moon. Here are some of the images from that iconic moon mission captured by the Hasselblad cameras. As much as OnePlus wants us to believe otherwise, truth is, cameras on their phone have been average at best. Ones on the OnePlus 8 Pro were a big improvement, but they still couldn't stand head to head with the competition. So this collaboration with Hasselblad is them admitting that they need help to improve the cameras on their phone. Which is a great thing, and I'm hoping to see a lot of improvements on the cameras on OnePlus smartphones going forward. But what does this mean for the OnePlus 9 Pro? Although we see a lot of Hasselblad branding on the 9 Pro's box, and OnePlus couldn't stop hyping this collaboration, Hasselblad actually had no inputs in designing the cameras on this phone. Yes, that's right. They seem to have been helping only on the software side of things. Specifically, they had a lot of inputs in helping these cameras achieve natural color calibration. Let us see if this really helps in real life performance or not. I have had this phone for over a week, but I did not want to push out its camera review because I had a feeling that OnePlus is going to push out a software update to improve the camera's performance. And they did. And I also knew that you guys would like to see how these cameras performed after the said software update. Now we are going to take a look at the specs of these cameras and the changes that have been brought to the new camera interface. If you guys want to skip over this information, you can head straight to the image and video samples from the chapters in the timeline of this video. There are 5 cameras on this phone, 4 at the back and 1 at the front. The camera module is now on the top left of the phone, unlike on the middle of the phone like on the OnePlus 8 Pro. The whole camera module still sticks out a little and the lenses stick out even more. The primary camera gets a 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 sensor with f1.8 aperture and a 23mm focal length. This camera gets a 7-element lens and optical image stabilization. Next up, there is a 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 sensor with f2.2 aperture and a 14mm lens. Yes, the wide lens on this phone gets a higher resolution sensor than the primary camera, which is really interesting. This wide camera also gets focusing capabilities, so it also acts like a macro camera. Then there is a 8 megapixel telephoto camera with f2.4 aperture and a 3.3x optical magnification. This telephoto camera also gets optical image stabilization. And finally, for some weird reason, there is a 2 megapixel monochrome camera. Now the primary and wide cameras at the back both are capable of shooting 8K 30fps and 4K 60fps videos. But the 4K 120fps video option is only available on the main camera. These 120fps videos are not captured in the slow motion mode, so they are not slowed down in the camera. If you want to slow them down, you will have to do it in your video editing software. You can shoot 1080p slow motion videos at 240fps and 720p slow motion videos at 480fps. At the front, you get the same age-old 16 megapixel Sony IMX471 sensor with f2.45 aperture. Interface of the camera app gets a few visual changes. The most prominent one being the normal white shutter button being replaced with the new Hasselblad orange color. And you also get a new shutter sound when you click a picture. This is reminiscent of the shutter sound on the iconic Hasselblad cameras. And the Pro mode also gets a new Hasselblad logo. So maybe they now want us to call it Hasselblad Pro mode. This Pro mode is only for images and there is no option to adjust any settings while shooting videos. You can't even switch to the wide lens in this Pro mode. Other than the new focus peaking option, there is nothing new in this Pro mode. Range for ISO is from 100 to 6400 and the range for shutter speed is from 1/8000th of a second all the way up to 30 seconds. One thing that I would like to point out is the shutter lag on this and all of the other OnePlus smartphones. I have been talking about this for a long time, but OnePlus doesn't seem too keen on fixing it, and this time it is getting really annoying. It is even worse while you are taking high resolution shots. After you take these shots with the main or the wide camera, you can't take another one for a good 3 to 5 seconds. For a phone having the latest processor, it sure seems to be lagging quite a bit, as you can see. With that, let us move on to the image and video samples. But before that, if you are new to this channel, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon next to it. YouTube Analytics tells me that over 90% of the people watching these videos still haven't subscribed to the channel. It is free and takes less than a couple of seconds, but it goes a long way in helping this channel grow. Normally, we begin with the image samples, But for this video, let us begin with the videos first. You can shoot 8K videos with the main and even with the wide camera, which is amazing. And you get optical image stabilization on the main camera even if you are shooting at this resolution. In ample light, these 8K videos turn out very good. But it takes up a huge amount of storage space and I don't have an 8K display to watch these videos on, so I stick to shooting 4K videos. You can shoot 4K videos at 120 FPS and play them as they are, or you can slow the footage down in your editing software and see how beautiful it looks. I always shoot at the highest frame rate that my smartphone camera supports because whenever I need it, I can slow the footage down. All the resolution and frame rate options on the main camera support OIS and the stabilization on this phone is very good. It might feel a bit jerky at times, but for the most part, it does a very good job. Sometimes the main camera won't set the focus properly and elements in the video end up having soft edges. I have had this happen on more than one occasion and you don't notice it when the video is being shot or even while you are looking at it on the phone's display. But it is very clearly seen when you look at these videos on a bigger screen. Hopefully this is something that can be fixed via a software update. Now the low light videos look decent, but they are no less grainy than the ones from the other phones. You can turn on the nightscape mode in these situations, but it just bumps up the ISO and makes the whole video look even more grainy. The nightscape video is also capped at 1080p 30 fps, so there aren't enough details in them. So if you ask me, I won't take any videos where there is less than ideal light. Taking videos indoors or in artificial light might give better results, but in these lighting conditions, I feel the nightscape mode is making the videos look worse. Other than that, I feel that the daytime videos from this phone are greatly improved over previous OnePlus smartphones. Now something that I want to see fixed right away is this overheating warning. For the first few days, the phone got very hot and even after using the camera just for 5 to 10 minutes, I got this warning which was very annoying. OnePlus says that they are aware of the issue and they are working on fixing it. I saw this overheating warning a little too often when I was taking these image and video samples, and it got a bit frustrating to wait for the phone to cool down before I can take any more images. With that, let us now move on to the images, and we will begin with the ones which I took in bright daytime. It was nice and sunny when I took these images, so there are a lot of details in these shots. This camera tends to overexpose the shots a bit, so every now and then you will have to tap on the brightest part of the image or bring the brightness slider down a couple of notches. I have heard some people complain that the main camera on this phone over-sharpens everything. I admit that we have seen OnePlus do this in the past, but I don't really see that happening with the OnePlus 9 Pro. I haven't compared these images with any of the other smartphone cameras yet, but on their own, I feel that these images look good and detailed, and I won't call them over-sharp, at least not by looking at these images alone. I do feel that some of these images have a bit blue or cool tint in them. This is not a major issue, but the conditions that I took these images in were very warm, and if you were there, you could easily see the warmth with your own eyes. But that is not being reflected in these images. I feel this is a white balance issue and something that can again be fixed with a software update. Now, I am not familiar with Hasselblad color science, so I don't know if this is because of that or not, but I don't really think this one is capturing natural looking colors. Don't get me wrong, these colors aren't looking bad or anything like that, but this phone is making them look a bit dull. The colors that you see in this shot look much brighter in real life, and the leaves in this one had a bit more warmth to them, and the OnePlus 9 Pro failed to capture it. Again, I don't feel these images are not good, but with all the Hasselblad hype and with all the natural color calibration talk, I just feel a bit disappointed. Every now and then, the phone does capture good looking images with pleasing colors. I wish it was more consistent. OnePlus 9 Pro does good with the dynamic range in these challenging lighting conditions. You can see there is a bright sun in the background in this shot, but you can still see a lot of details and colors in the leaves. In this one, there is a bright sky in the background and there was a fair bit of shadow on the headphones. But the camera did very well to bring up the shadows, so we see a lot of details in the headphones and the brighter background is not overexposed. I like these shots very much. The sun was in the shot and I was afraid that the beautiful colors of the mural on the wall will be dark, but the HDR mode made sure that it looks really good. This one in particular turned out to be really great. This one has a bit more noise in the shadows, which you can see as I zoom in, but I think the overall shot still looks good. After some great HDR shots, I got one of these. I don't even feel like the HDR mode did anything here. There aren't enough details in the trees and the whole image looks really muddy. So again, I wish the camera performed well more consistently. I mean, it has got the capabilities to perform really well, it just needs to be more consistent. This is what the main camera captures, and here is how much more of the scene the wide lens will let you get in the shot. When OnePlus announced the OnePlus 9 Pro, I was more interested in checking out this wide camera. It's a 50 megapixel sensor which can take amazing images. These wide shots are incredibly detailed. This right here might very well be the best wide camera on any phone that I have tested. That being said, it does have some of the same issues as the wide lens on other smartphones. OnePlus has worked on lens correction and the lines in these images do appear straight. But there is still some distortion towards the edges, and those areas are not as sharp as the center of the image. It is prone to showing a lot of noise in the darker parts of the image, and in many cases it doesn't show as good of a dynamic range as the main camera. This time, OnePlus does seem to have worked a bit on matching the white balance and color temperature between these two lenses. But given the inconsistency of the main camera, sometimes we see slightly different colors from both these cameras. All that being said, I really like the wide camera on this phone. And this lens has another tick in its arsenal, and we will get to it in a few moments. But before that, let us check out what the telephoto lens offers. It lets you get 3.3x closer to the subject compared to the primary camera. While these zoomed in images look good, since it is just an 8 megapixel sensor, there aren't too many details in them. This lens does get OIS, which is very important because as the focal length increases, it becomes more and more difficult to keep the focus on your subject. Actually, while clicking images, you can keep on digitally zooming in until you reach 30x. Now these images are not always usable and there is too much software processing going around, but you do have the option. I think the 10x zoomed in shots while having a lot of noise are still usable, but the 30x ones are just not that great. All the images that we saw from the main camera till now were 12 megapixel pixel bin ones, and as we saw before, they capture plenty of details. But you can switch to the high resolution mode and capture 48 megapixel images. The main advantage of 48 megapixel images is that it captures more details and you can zoom in a lot more on them compared to the normal 12 megapixel ones before they start falling apart. But to see those more details that these images capture, you will have to zoom in 6 to 7 times, which is not something that we normally do on a smartphone. Normally, 48 megapixel images are not that great with the dynamic range, but that doesn't seem to be the case with the OnePlus 9 Pro. These images do take up a lot of space and you need to zoom way in to see the difference between these and 12 megapixel ones. So for most of your images, I would just suggest you to stick with the default 12 megapixel mode. You can take high resolution wide shots as well, and while these are again more detailed than the normal wide shots, you will still have to zoom in 6 to 7 times to see the difference. So unless you are trying to capture images of some architecture or landscape, I would suggest you to stick with the default resolution on the wide camera as well. Before we move on to the close-up and macro shots, here is a quick focusing speed test. As you can see, it is quick at switching the focus from a far to near object in these even lighting conditions. But in some conditions, particularly when there is more contrast in the shot, it sometimes loses the focus from the main subject. So again, we see a bit of inconsistency here. Now despite of this, I found no focus hunting while trying to take close-up shots. I just pointed the camera at the subject and the focus was set, so I would say the close-up shots from this phone look very good. The main subject is in sharp focus and the background gets a very nice optical blur. But since the main sensor is so big, the plane of focus on this phone is very narrow and anything out of this plane starts showing a bit of fringing or distortion. Now this is not the only phone with this problem. Most of the other Android phones come with a huge camera sensor now, and most of the people have even got used to this by now. Remember I said the wide lens has something more to offer? Well, it has focusing capabilities, so it also doubles as a macro camera. Just look at how good these macro shots are. These are pixel bin macro shots from the 50 megapixel camera, so even at 12.8 megapixel, these shots have much more details than the macro cameras found on most of the other smartphones. If you like taking macro shots, you're going to love the macro camera on this phone. The best thing is, you don't even have to switch to the macro lens manually. If you move your camera close to any subject, the phone will automatically switch to the macro mode and help you focus on a closer object. Let us now move on to the portrait shots. When you switch to the portrait mode, the camera defaults to a zoomed in portrait shot. Unlike on previous phones, it is not using the telephoto lens for this purpose, and these are just zoomed in shots with the main camera. And while they still look good, there just aren't enough details in them. Edge detection seems to be good and accurate, but since the main subject appears softer in these zoomed in portrait shots, I prefer taking wide portrait shots, and I wish there was an option to make this the default mode when you switch to the portrait mode. The edge detection is not exactly perfect while taking portrait shots, and it misses out on blurring some parts of your hair, but it has got better with software updates and the overall image now looks much better. These portrait shots clearly look processed, especially when there is shadow on the face and the phone is trying to make it look brighter. But I still like how these portrait shots turned out. Given the right lighting conditions, OnePlus 9 Pro can take really good portrait shots. Normally on most phones, edge detection gets even better when I try to take portraits of objects. But for some reason, OnePlus 9 Pro really struggles at this. It takes a few attempts before it can accurately detect the edges of the main subject. It happened with me on more than one occasion, so if you use this phone to take portraits of objects, make sure you take multiple shots of the same subject. Let us now move on to the images that I took in indoors, artificial and lower lighting conditions. Having a large sensor, optical image stabilization and wide aperture all come together to help it take good images in lower light. Even as we zoom in, we see a lot of details in these shots. There is some noise starting to creep in the darker parts of the image, but you won't notice it unless you zoom in a lot. The Smart Scene Detection option is on by default in the camera settings, and I would suggest that you leave it unchanged, because when the light gets even lower, the phone automatically switches to the nightscape mode, keeps the shutter open for slightly more time, and captures brighter and much better looking images. If there is a light source around and it is hitting the lens at a particular angle, you will see a bit of lens flare in your shots. In some cases, it can be overpowering and completely ruin the shot. But you can take care of it just by moving or tilting your phone a bit, or by just placing your hand between the light source and your camera lens. And just by doing this, look at how much better the shot can turn out. The wide camera captures a lot of details in lower light as well. But since its optics and aperture are not as good as the main camera, there is a lot of noise in these wide shots. And unlike the main camera, the wide lens will not switch to the nightscape mode automatically. If you want to capture better images with this wide camera, you will have to keep in mind to switch to the nightscape mode on this camera manually. The Smart Scene Recognition mode is not perfect, and sometimes it might not even switch to the night mode in these lighting conditions. In that case, you can switch to it manually and look at how much better the image will turn out. I like this nightscape mode, because you don't have to hold the phone steady for a long time, and even if the phone moves a bit, the shot won't turn out to be all blurry. That brings us to the front-facing camera. This is the same 16-megapixel sensor that OnePlus has been using for their selfie camera since ages. That being said, maybe it is because of the new ISP on the Snapdragon 888 processor, or maybe OnePlus did a bit of fine-tuning, but the selfies from this phone look more detailed than the ones from the previous OnePlus smartphones. Skin tones and overall colors look pleasing in most of the shots, and while OnePlus still needs to work on making these images look better, I would say I am not completely disappointed with this selfie camera. For the portrait selfies, edge detection seems to be on point. Colors, skin tones and dynamic range, everything looks very good in most of the portrait shots. But it is still a OnePlus phone, so every now and then it will mess up the complete image. So again, I just wish OnePlus keeps on delivering good looking images more consistently. I am in the common area of my building, so I am doing this with the mask on. Here's a video from the front facing camera of the OnePlus 9 Pro. You can see how it handles the overall colors of the scene, exposure and stabilization when I am walking around with it. Those were all the image and video samples from the OnePlus 9 Pro that I had for you guys. After looking at over 110 image and video samples, I think we all can agree that OnePlus has done a really good job with the cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro. But something that they desperately need to work on is consistency. This phone is capable of taking some really good images, and if it can deliver that consistently, I wouldn't mind using this as my main phone. If OnePlus had not overplayed the Hasselblad card, and they did not hype the cameras on this phone so much, many people would have really enjoyed the cameras on this phone. Now, although the cameras on this phone are good, it seems like OnePlus has been shooting for the moon and they only managed to reach the top of Mount Everest. So while Mount Everest is still high, it is nowhere as high or as far as the moon, and it seems like OnePlus missed their mark. Would you guys agree? Alright, these have been my thoughts about the cameras on these phones after taking a look at all these images. But you guys saw the images too, so what do you guys have to say about the cameras on this phone? Let me know in the comments. In my next video, I am putting the cameras on this OnePlus 9 Pro against the ones on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and that is a very interesting video, so make sure you have your notifications turned on. If you guys are looking to purchase this phone, I will really appreciate if you get it from the affiliate links in the description section. That is it for this very detailed review of the cameras on this OnePlus 9 Pro. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel for more quality tech videos like this. You can also check out some of the other videos from this channel. This has been Sagar, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.